Aloha, this is Clint Hansen with Maui Luxury Real Estate, and you're listening to Maui Real Estate Radio on the KAOI Radio Group. What a lovely Monday. I hope everybody's having a great day and cranking up for the holidays. We're coming into it. We've been preparing for our annual toy drive with Friends of the Children's Justice Center. So definitely go out and look at any of the Bank of Hawaii locations for toy drop off, and that will go to help Maui kids specifically. So if you're considering doing a toy drive yourself, definitely reach out to Friends of the Children's Justice Center. We've done radio shows with them, and they are definitely by far one of our most favorite local charities because a large percentage goes directly to the people in need, and more importantly, that money stays on Maui. I have, of course, co-host Byron Yap with American Savings Bank. Say hello, Byron.
Good morning, good afternoon. Byron Yap here.
Good morning and good afternoon. And of
Yes.
course, Kevin Watkins with Aloha Rental Management. I have so many hats, sometimes I forget. Say hello, Kevin.
Aloha and good morning.
Good morning to you. We actually have a lot to talk about with Aloha Rental Management and all the new changes there. But I wanted to start off and talk with Byron Yap with ASB. I think this is actually a huge announcement, a very rare opportunity for local first-time home buyers. And this is a program that American Savings Bank is exclusive with on the island. So if you're looking to get an excellent rate and you're a first-time home buyer, definitely be reaching out to ASB. Byron is a local boy. He's a Maui man, and he is here to help Maui people. So, Byron, tell us a little bit about the program, what it takes to be qualified, and the points and benefits of the program.
Okay. First of all, Byron Yap with American Savings Bank. I'm the team leader for Maui. NMLS number was it 860092. So, what American Savings Bank came out with this year, and we're going to be carrying it over into 2025, is called This Is Home. Basically, what it is This Is Home is an affordable financing solution for first-time buyers looking to home in Hawaii. And it was basically to try to keep people from moving from Hawaii to stay in Hawaii, the local people. So it's one of our top loan programs right now, and I think it's growing. It's growing by the day and the week. What it is basically first-time home buyers. It's offered to the local residents, and it's our money. It's our money we're using from the bank to finance these loans. And the advantages of the program is number one is a lower interest rate. What I mean by that is most loans for single family homes or condominiums for full-time owner occupants is the loan in the background is sold to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac.
Yeah.
And the bank that you get the loan from, it's serviced from. Well, we don't sell the loan. We're not getting reimbursed back from the government on this. We're using our own money. So what that does is we're able to offer lower rate. Give you an example today, and as you know, rates change daily. A normal government loan is about 7%. Today, the This Is Home is 6.25. So it's almost a full percentage point less because our goal is to help as many Hawaii residents as we have. Additionally, with it is we allow 3% down if you're a first-time buyer. And additionally, we the mortgage insurance when you're putting less than 20% down is reduced. We've worked out with the mortgage insurance companies what the theme of the program was to give a reduced rate, reduced payment. Can they help us? So they've stepped up and help us. This program has been in effect, and we're seeing a lot of traction happen in the island. So much traction. We just signed up the Hawaii State Teachers Association, the
Wow.
union, to be part of this program too, to offer it to their teachers, which I think
I mean,
that they
that
have.
that is a huge amount of savings. I mean, that's incredible. Saving almost a
Yes,
percent on a mortgage really spells out to huge savings, especially over the full 30-year term. Now, a lot of people, they're getting these loans, but what you're failing to realize is, of course, probably in a few years, they may end up refinancing and getting a better rate if that happens. But regardless, you can buy at today's prices, which is, I think, the ability to move now when there's, fewer buyers that are out there is a really great opportunity that people are kind of missing out on because interest rates are so high. So this gives them an additional tool to stay on island.
yeah, and there is restrictions that someone can contact us to reach out to, like a minimal credit score of 680. You got to meet the area median income depending on the household size and all that. So there are restrictions. It's like with any loan program, there are restrictions, but the benefits, if you can fall in this category, do help you. When you start looking at loans and you figure out almost a full percentage less, the payment is a lot more affordable in this current interest rate environment. Of course, it's to get them in the door, get a first time home buyer because we don't want to see them leave, and then when the rates drop down, refinance, hey, get another loan. So
Absolutely.
it's a starting point.
I mean, that's a huge starting point. That's probably a huge factor of why the teachers union has been reaching out to you. I'm kind of surprised the hospital hasn't reached out to you too, because they've got a lot of workers that are, trying to get secure housing. And now, if only there was another program to get, Las Vegas people to move back to Maui, because what people don't realize is that's, our ninth island. So many people end up leaving the islands and going over to Las Vegas. So, is there any way for people to reach back, or is it really just for people who have current residency here?
It's for current residences here. The goal is, we'd love to help them. We've got other programs that we can possibly look at, but the goal is the people here trying to get them into the housing because,
Yeah.
as the rental market is difficult. Renting, a lot of people want that home ownership so they're secure in where they live. They don't have to worry about, am I going to get evicted in a month or a year? So that was the
Hmm.
whole goal behind it. And like I said, it's taken off steam. We just we just signed up to a project on Kauai. It's a county affordable project that I was able to get us signed up on called Lima Ola. It's a 100% affordable project that we're offering this program to. And I think we've had it out for about, I signed that project maybe 2 weeks, and we've had two going on three applications there already, and they've only released like
Okay.
five of them. So
Yep.
I want to see Maui grow more, and that's why I'm glad to be speaking about it because I think we are doing a lot of loans on Maui, but I want to see it grow even further to help people that may not know about this program.
It's a long program. I mean, a long timeline for affordable housing between when the offering happens and then when you're able to finally move in. It's usually multiple years. So it's important to get your planning in place. Reach out to a lender today. So if you want to get in contact with Byron at ASB, please give us your phone number and email address.
My direct number is 808-872-4964. And
Right.
my email address is B as in boy, YAP, that's Young Apple Peter, at asbhawaii.com. That's BYAP at asbhawaii.com. Thank
I'm
you.
calling you young Apple Peter from here on. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate all the info on that, and it's important, and I'm glad to see ASB stepping up and helping Maui people. It's really important. So that being said, of course, one of the things that happened since the fire is that we actually started a long-term rental management company, Aloha Rental Management, and we do actually help a couple people just manage their homes while they're not here. But the vast majority of ours has been to help fire victims specifically. And so in that process, we contracted, with the providers, Lima Charlie and so on, and worked on getting people in. And that's actually been a moving process from when it was instituted to where it is currently today. So we have some updates that we'd like to share with you on the FEMA Direct Lease Program, CNHA, and so forth. Kevin, who is the long arm of Aloha Rental Management, please introduce yourself.
Aloha. So it's Kevin Watkins, and I'm the executive director of Aloha Rental Management. It's been quite a roller coaster, and we launched about a year ago now. And as Clint had said, we primarily have been working to help fire survivors find housing via the FEMA Direct Lease Program. There's FEMA Rental Assistance. CNHA did a program as well to help with housing, and then there's Global Empowerment Mission, aka GEM, which partnered with the state and Airbnb. So between those three entities, the federal, the state, and the county, there's sort of a big safety net for catching the survivors from the Lahaina and the Kula fires.
Yeah, and one of the things too, I mean, while we started and specifically created this company to help with the emergency rental situation and the Lahaina fire, as time has gone off since that disaster and the housing program has ended, we of course been taking on normal housing long-term management. So we have about a half a dozen right now, and it's continuing to grow. We got a few more people in the pipeline, and but let's continue on with, of course, how it's going.
So for any of our listeners out there, you can contact us at aloharentalmanagement@gmail.com. If you're a homeowner and you're looking for someone to manage your property and get you some quality tenants and make sure that your property and your tenants are all staying happy and everything's running smoothly, that's part of what we do.
How do you do that?
Well, there's some great ways that I think the number one thing is communication, right? We just keep an
100%.
open, clear line of communication to hold together a solid relationship. Of course, this begins with Aloha, with our tenants and with our homeowners. We do regular maintenance checks. We have a growing vendor list of, handyman, electricians, plumbers, and for any of those tradesmen or women out there that would like to also add to our roster, once again, contact us at our email.
I have
So
to do a shout out to our handy woman on the west side, Chris. She is fantastic.
fantastic. Yeah. So with the FEMA Direct Lease Program, there are some changes coming up. And thanks to our council member, Tamara Paulton, up on the west side, who's been a diligent resource for the community across the island. We've got this big update. So one of the big changes coming to FEMA Direct Lease is there was funding allocated to extend disaster assistance extended from February of 25 to February of 2026. So that's good news that that money has been allocated so that we can continue helping our families in need. And we know that, they're not going to be that funding's not going to disappear, right? So they're going to
Mhm.
continue helping people. Currently, there's 1,205 households that are in the FEMA Direct Lease Program.
Mhm.
So, high level review of that for some of the listeners out there is there's three different entities that represent FEMA. They're Lima Charlie, Fedcology, which is AKA Parliament LLC, and Aesthetic Home Investments. All of these companies that are representing FEMA are not based in the state of Hawaii. And so that's part of where we found a lot of success in helping our homeowners is creating that communication bridge from these mainland companies that are basically only responsible for allocating the funds from FEMA. They don't really have anybody on island other than hiring vendors or working with property managers like ourselves to ensure that the property is being upkept properly. So,
We
uh,
actually we had a conversation the other day with one of those vendors, and we were asking them how the other management companies were touching base and seeing how the process evolving because we had a whole bunch of questions for them about how the change in the FEMA program has been going. And he said we are by far the most diligent and active management company that's been seeking answers, communicating regularly, finding how the program is evolving. It was really good to hear that come up,
he also did mention that we've been very polite and cordial with him. So it just brings to imagination what some upset entities out there might be treating people like. So we always like to start with aloha.
Honey
As
works better than salt.
that's right. So some insight into what our community members that are in FEMA Direct Lease have to deal with is they get a checkup monthly from a FEMA caseworker. What they're supposed to be doing while they're in the FEMA Direct Lease Program and the federal government is taking care of their rent is they need to do a monthly recertification. Now, part of that recertification is that they're being active, productive members of society. They're gainfully employed or looking for employment or doing education, depending on what situation that they may be in, but they're additionally supposed to be looking for property. So, of course, initially after the fire, with our lack of surplus and rentals available, that was sort of a fruitless effort. But now we're beginning to see with some of the temporary sites, such as the Kilohana site in Lahaina, that's 167 modular units. They've got 98 of those on site right now, and they've begun to have their first families move in there. There's also several of the developments. If you've driven on the Lahaina bypass heading north into Lahaina, you'll see those different apartment buildings coming up. And so what the tenants are starting to get offered that are in the direct lease program is there's a lottery system for all of these different housing sites. And just recently, we spoke with a tenant, and they had told us that when they were doing their recertification with FEMA, they had won a lottery for one of the sites, and so they were offered to take it, and they said you only get a week though. So they made the
What do you
decision
mean
to
by that? A week to move in, a week to say
a
yes?
week a week to move in. So they had to kind of give the answer on the spot, and they
Yeah.
got a week to move in. Fortunately, they were able to talk with their caseworker and get a little bit more time for their timetable to move with having kids and working and commuting daily from Kihei to Lahaina. It's really difficult to squeeze in a move. The holidays, they were notified right before Thanksgiving.
Oh,
So thankfully, the FEMA was graceful with them and gave them a little bit more of a courtesy period to move out. But it's still less than 2 weeks that they got from notification to happen to move into that new spot.
have you
So
been helping them move boxes?
I offered to, but the whole family showed up to help. They had aunties and
Oh,
uncles
that's
and
sweet.
cousins. So that's great. That's always something that is one of the benefits of our community is how everybody comes together to help each other
Pitch
out.
in. Yeah.
As
I mean,
we've
from right
seen,
after the fire
being
to
under fire.
going forward, it's always been, hand in hand, trying to get the resources where they need to go and helping each other.
So
So,
the FEMA program is through 26. If someone help me to understand this, if they find a place they move out, that's paid on their own, or is that FEMA paying it? How does that work? Like the transition?
Yeah,
so
that's actually that's one of the long questions. And the reason we called some of the programs is because we saw the articles that were really broad and we had no idea what they were talking about, how the tenants would be paying part of the rent. And we weren't sure how that functioned, how we were going to be getting, our owners paid and how the whole system works. So that, go ahead and take it away, Kevin, because that was a lot of details.
so with that extension from 25 to 26, there is a caveat that comes with the FEMA Direct Lease program. So, beginning March 1st, and all of the tenants in that program have been notified, they'll be required to start paying a portion of their rent that's based on HUD standards. So, I don't have the HUD standards right in front of me, but it's
It's
somewhere.
escalating, basically.
Yeah, it's definitely below what we would call fair market value. And so FEMA is going to continue helping with rental assistance. And when they take these sites like the Kilohana site or some of those other sites in there, I believe the tenants are responsible for a small portion, a HUD level, right? And
Hmm.
the rest is still paid. So
It's anywhere
yeah,
from a few $100s to a thousand plus.
exactly. So, but that's going to affect, a lot of families' decisions because one of the things that the FEMA Direct Lease program is they paid 2 to 3 times fair market value for their rentals. And so, the tenants, when they're in these, let's say 2, 3, 4 bedroom homes, even if they're paying HUD pricing on them, there's still it still can be a lot of money. So, for example, we had a 4 bedroom home that our tenant just evacuated to move back to the west side into a 3 bedroom home.
Hmm.
That 3 bedroom, they're paying less than $1,000 a month for that 3 bedroom in Lahaina. Whereas if they were to stay in the very large 4 bedroom here in Kihei, they would have been paying right around 4,000 a month.
And just so we're all aware, the majority of the units that we targeted were short-term rentals. And in fact, this single-family house, it was one of the ones that had a license to do vacation rentals. And we were able to convince them, because of our level of care, that we would be able to get them a good long-term tenant, provide them, opportunity to rent their place, and they would, after the program, still be able to vacation rent. Now, as we're transitioning these tenants to a new place, it's going to be an interesting process that will evolve. We're assuming that he was going to want to go back to vacation renting the property, but The funny thing is, the Charlie Lima has talked about extending it. So right now we're in communication with FEMA and Charlie to see if there's going to be somebody to fill that position.
Exactly. So what we saw happen about a month ago is we got a notification from these FEMA representatives, Lima Charlie, Fedcology, that they have a letter of intent for the extension once those funds were announced that they were allocated to extend the program from 25 into 26. And so we have letters of intent for our homeowners that if they would like to stay past the 1 year minimum that they signed up for, they can extend by 6 months at a time. So at the same time that we have these extensions and letters of intent available for our homeowners and working together with the FEMA direct lease program, we're also seeing people begin to transition to the west side. So it's going to be a dynamic, evolving situation over the next few months. Our first direct lease rentals started in January, and we had some start as late as June this year. And so as all of those begin to hit the 1 year mark, it's just gonna be a dynamic situation to stay in contact with FEMA, with the homeowners, with the tenants about what they want to do with their future. So I think the big elephant in the room is how quick are they going to be able to rebuild in Lahaina? I believe that here we are a year and 3 months after the fire, and I believe there's only one house that's been completed
Yeah,
in
I
that time.
actually did a drone flight, and you can go to my YouTube and take a look at it, and it shows the progress. Pretty much every single residential place has now been gravelled and cleared, and there's a large number of places that has foundational work. You can see sticks up, several near completion, that one home that has been finished. So it's definitely interesting to see the process as we start to rebuild. But one of the most important factors is the fact that Cloverleaf has been taking over the county's role in permitting. So the ability for the county to work out an emergency disaster plan for the zoning so that they can go through and apply and get variances because a lot of these homes are grandfathered in on where they were built in reference to the boundary and things of that nature, has allowed things to happen a lot faster because Maui tends to be one of the most difficult places to do any kind of building. So Cloverleaf has been an valuable resource in enabling things to happen as fast as they are, as slow as it seems. Now, of course, we may have all seen the recent discussion on whether or not they're going to be applying to the commercial Front Street and allowing those variances so that Lahaina can be rebuilt. As it is, you can't even build the home or the commercial units that were across the street from the ocean because they're still too close to the ocean, even though that is stabilized by the wall and oftentimes more than the estimated sea level rise. So it's something that the county has to consider, sea level rise along with the needs of the people and our economy.
And for our listeners out there, could you just explain a little bit more what Cloverleaf is? That's a third party entity?
Yeah, so it is a company that is working in combination with the county, but they're the ones that are really processing the permits to make sure that things get done to not total code, but basically safe code. And what they're able to do is consider the proposal, make sure that it's inspected, make sure that it's a design review and meets the current standards, but most importantly, is allowed variances so that, right now it's like if you build within 6 feet of a boundary line of a two-story home, that's as close as you can get. Actually, single level is 6 feet. Two-story is 10 feet. So a lot of two-story places were built only within 6 feet. That means none of those two-story homes could ever be rebuilt again. They would have to be 10 feet away or go to a single level basically floor plan. So what this has allowed them to do is if a two-story building is close to the property line, like within 6 feet, they can say, hey, we understand this does not meet current code, but they're going through the disaster relief program and zoning ordinances that are temporary and issued by Cloverleaf, and bam, it basically gets, stamped and inspected and gone through. Having these kinds of programs is a way a lot of communities work towards getting their permitting done on a usual basis. It actually tends up being more efficient and more affordable than our current public systems. So being streamlined and having a corporate structure tends to be more efficient than the open forum process, the way that the county works, which tends to be the most difficult permitting process anywhere in the nation. It actually, if you want to build a conforming structure in a national park in the mainland, it's easier to do that than it is to build a home on the lower side of the highway in Kihei, because even though that might be over 1,000 feet away from the ocean, it's still considered a special management area. So you can get something done 6 months to a year in a national park, and it'll take 2+ years in the lower parts of Kihei. And even if you want to build a hotel in a national park and go through the variances and have the approvals, that only takes about 2.5, 3.5 years in a national park. Something like that in Hawaii usually takes, 15+ years. So there's pluses and minuses when we're balancing out how we want our, economy to function and our communities to be built. Having those inputs are great, but at the same time, there's lots of inefficiencies as you have more and more networks of people making a longer and longer chain of approval. So,
Thank you for that. And then that sounds great for our West Side folks, for our homeowners to be able to start to rebuild, and that there's some streamline going in there. I do have this other bit of news that Tamara Polton shared from FEMA, and for homeowners have their lots on the west side, but don't think that they're going to be rebuilding for 2 or 3 years. FEMA is looking to lease those lots to put modular structures on them to provide housing in Lahaina, and that also would help speed up the building process. So that's just another small thing that we see from FEMA trying to be dynamic into really getting the recovery done. And one of the things that we've gotten from speaking with Lima Charlie, for I think our community to understand, is FEMA's role isn't meant to be here permanently. They are trying to get us for what they're responsible for. Yeah. So the cleanup and then the housing and the subsequent rebuilding, it's not supposed to be 5, 10 years that they're here providing housing. This is supposed to be an accelerated and a bridge program, right? So it's to make sure that our community wasn't displaced or homeless or having to move away, which sadly we have seen a lot of families move.
A lot. Yeah.
Fire. The whole intent is for this to be a bridge so that we can rebuild, and so we can get our economy going, our homes back, and our lives put back together as much as we can after this great disaster.
Yeah. And Byron, did you have a question about that? Looks like he actually froze. So one of the questions that I have is understanding a little bit more about not the FEMA and not necessarily the rebuild process, but questions of getting loans associated. So I actually had a question for Byron about that, but it looks like he actually froze out of this. So let's get back to a couple of those additional statements that you have.
I thought that he just might be really embracing stillness.
Very stoic. He's very stoic.
He's coming back on.
Yeah. He's probably timed out. We'll see him in a minute. But tell us more about those points.
I'm sorry, which point?
Oh, the ones that are on there. The tomorrow ones on the.
Oh yeah. So there's just some extra stuff that's on here. That's
here we go. Actually, Byron just got back.
Byron,
so Byron, I have a question for you.
Yes.
One of the questions that a lot of people have about the rebuild process is, of course, getting the funds to rebuild. And does that program, are there ASB rebuild options available for coming on vacant lot land so that they can have funds available to rebuild?
It's so some of the loans that customers that had loans with us, when they got their insurance settlements, we put it into a combined account with the bank and them, the customer, and then we're holding those funds together so when they can rebuild. That's one program we've done with the existing loans we've had out there for the customers. There it wasn't a large sum of them, probably less than 1% or maybe
Oh,
one
wow. Very
percent,
small.
or wasn't a big one. But we have some like in Kahoma and stuff like that where the money's sitting, and once they get the rebuild, then we'll start releasing the money. Now, the other thing we're doing is, like always, we have the construction loans that we offer. We just started opening up parts of Lahaina. Just depends on where, if they can build right away. One of the key things with our construction loans, they've got to have their permits so we can, process a loan application instead of on certain parts of Lahaina where they can't build we don't know when, right? So
Yeah.
we're monitoring that and trying to adjust depending on the customer and the situation itself.
And just so everybody's aware, there are actually cookie cutter options and build plans available. So you can go through and look at those and actually choose one that will fit your lot. And those are already basically pre-approved. So you can go directly and get them done right away. And so I strongly recommend you looking into that. And that way you can get your loan right away. And the sooner you start building, the sooner you can be living back in your home. And my anticipation is probably in about 2 to 3 years, you're going to see the bottleneck for construction workers and contractors really coming to a head and those timelines extending. So if you start today, you might have your home ready in 1.5, or to 2 years. If you start in a year, it might be, 2 to 3 years after that, because more and more people are going to have started their process. So sooner you start, the better. And whether you're ready to start, definitely call and reach out to Byron today. Oh, you muted yourself again. You muted yourself again. You're on
Oh,
mute.
oh, sorry.
There you
Okay.
go. Yeah.
So I have a question, like, with this rental thing, I'm just getting back to real jumpy. So it
Yep.
ends at a certain period. But they might extend it, but this is for, it depends on the area they're building in. You know what I'm saying? Are the politicians working on that?
So there, you mean in regards to the disaster zone?
Yeah, the disaster zone, helping these people, because it may be 3 to 5 years, right? How is
Mhm.
that?
So it is specific to the burn zone. And that's where, cloverleaf comes into play. And that's basically your only opportunity. If you're affected, not if you're anywhere, it's just that area. There has been some talk, because it actually has been declared through the state to be an emergency situation in terms of housing to if we can bring the number of permits down to a more manageable number, like a 3 month to 6 month process as opposed to a 6 months to a year and a half process, that we can be out of that disaster emergency program, but working through a third party like Cloverleaf to do current permitting. But that's just talk. There's no proposals. None of the county council has stepped up to actually make something like that happen to help the average person on Maui. It's really only been to help those who've been affected by the disaster, because right now that's been the emergency that we're most in the forefront of our mind. Even though the average person has had housing insecurity for decades here on Maui, and Governor Green has declared a state of emergency. I think it was about 6 months before the fire. This has really just exacerbated and taken the focus of our resources. So while a large percent of our capital and time has gone into it, it is 100% something that needs to be addressed on a number of levels.
Now, this thing, this real last question is, it's for homeowners, right? Not tenants that were relocated, just homeowners, right?
No, actually, some of the housing has been for tenants as well, but the rebuild, of course, and the permitting is those that have those lots that are there. But the FEMA direct lease program is people who lived in and were affected and have basically roots in on the west side. And there's different programs depending on, your level of time and history and situation, because that's why it depends on whether or not you would go through the FEMA direct lease and Charlie Lima, or if you'd go through CNHA and whatnot.
Right. So
So
for some people that didn't qualify for the direct lease, it's because a lot of times it was homeowners and they
Mhm.
had insurance funds coming in for the loss of their home. And so they were given rental assistance instead of direct lease options. We have to remember and rewind back in the early days post fire, it was the Red Cross program that put our survivors into hotels, right? And then so there was a big transition phase where everyone that was displaced and in those hotels, then, gosh, what was that? Probably a 4 to 6 month window before the last of the survivors were out of the hotel Red Cross program, where, there's over 7,000 individuals that were affected just in the Lahaina fire. And so getting the infrastructure in of Red Cross to get everyone in and registered and then getting FEMA to essentially be there to catch the ball for the next thing with rental assistance and direct leasing. And at the same time, with those over 1,200 households that are in the FEMA direct lease, onboarding those as well. So at one point, there were over 1,500 homes in the FEMA direct lease program. And of course, as they began to inspect them and look through things, some of the stuff was just not in a livable situation. There were some people out there that were, trying to make a quick buck off of FEMA, and it just really wasn't great living conditions for our tenants. Fortunately for us, a lot of our rentals that we have with FEMA direct lease were short-term rentals, so they were turnkey already. So that was a
Yep.
great opportunity for our community to have something and have all of their basic needs met in terms of housing, just ready to go. So, and we had a fairly simple onboarding process for most of
Mhm.
our places. It was a lot better than some of the other things that I've heard from tenants and homeowners.
And we were really hustling in those initial days when the FEMA direct lease program became available. Some of my clients are flippers, so they'll go and they'll purchase homes that are unlivable or in a poor state, and then they'll revamp them. And, when they sell these properties, they're normally no furnishings. So we're like, this is actually a great opportunity. You can be using this as capital to apply for other loans so that you can acquire other properties. And we worked very diligently to get these places furnished in a short amount of time so they can be inspected and approved. So that was quite the hustle in a short amount of time. And it was such a grab bag between some of the furnishing options that were available. Like we'd get some that were excellent and great and ready to go into, and then other ones where there'd be like stains on mattresses. We're like, this doesn't work. No, so it definitely quite the hustle.
Well, and it was a discovery process. We did turn down some business. There was
Yeah.
a moratorium on evictions, and something that, not to say that I'm a tattletale, but we did make several reports to, I think it was the DA, the state, that if a homeowner had evicted their tenants to put in FEMA direct lease tenants, that was a
Mhm.
violation of the rules. And so we did deny business with individuals that were trying to go that route because
And
it's
we didn't report
unethical.
directly to the DA, but after the rejection process, the DA did reach out to us afterwards. It wasn't something that we did talk to them. It was part of the process of, the tenants making complaints, not us.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's, part of how we prefer to do things, first of all, ethically, but secondly, transparently. We like to keep open communication and transparency as best as we can with our tenants and our homeowners.
Hmm.
So it'd probably be best then, because I've heard a lot today, is if someone has questions still, is maybe call you guys like a real estate company, because to navigate through this because there's so many. It sounds like there's so many options for me. I might stop at the first door that shuts, right? Versus, it sounds like just hearing everything. There's 3 or 4 possible options, maybe 5. At least make that conversation call if I'm a affected person from the fire in Lahaina, and I'm looking, I can't rebuild yet.
That's
Yeah, and I
that's a
mean,
great question.
in the most part, the FEMA direct lease program is not taking on any more properties. I mean, especially when it comes to anywhere else on the island, there actually is some rare examples in which they're continuing to take properties,
On the west side.
on the west side and the west side only. So, and if there's somebody with a property on the west side that would be interested, certainly reach out to us. We can see if there's one of those rare opportunities available, but it's pretty few and far between.
Right, because this is supposed to be a bridge program, right? So
Precisely.
now
Yeah.
that they've hit this, over 1,200 units that are still in FEMA direct lease, and like the announcement we said earlier, the tenants, the occupants, the fire survivors are going to start being responsible for a portion of their rent, which makes sense in a bridge program, with this gracefully and thankfully this period where they haven't had to pay rent so that they could get themselves back on their feet, replace their car, replace their belongings, maybe take care of the funeral arrangements for deceased relatives, sadly, for the 111 reported that died in the fire. you know it's with this bridge program, part of that bridging is to get them back into a mode of paying rents as well. So another thing I'd like to share is that if people are having questions, we are more on the homeowner side and do work together with FEMA. And then once we have those fire survivor tenants, we create a positive relationship with them. But we're not allowed to find the tenant and find the homeowner and put them together. They have to go through FEMA. And the best resources for that right now is in the Lahaina Gateway Center, right off of the bypass in Lahaina. There is an Office of Recovery right in there, right next to where the DMV used to be. I think the DMV is still there. I'm not sure. I haven't been over there. And then also at CNHA's Council for Native Hawaiian Advancements, Queen Kahumanu location, and the mall there, I think right behind the UPS store, kind of close to the theater. They also have FEMA representatives in that office. So if you do need to talk to a FEMA person on island in person, those are the 2 locations to go to.
And it's kind of
Otherwise,
interesting that we're talking about FEMA because the majority of the people that are reaching out to us are actually central and south and upcountry. So those are normally going more market rate rents. And people really have enjoyed working with us because we have a whole series of videos that we create showing the current condition of the home, giving them, updates after the tenants move in to see if there's been any changes or damages in the move-in process, as well as touching base, making sure that repairs that can cause, deleterious effects over time get taken care of before that little drip under the water heater ends up rotting out a whole wall. So it's really important that we have these, opportunities to touch base. And we, of course, explain that to the tenants. We have things scheduled in advance and work with them so that we can get into the home and make sure that their property is taken care of and monitored on a regular basis. So these little things don't turn into, multi-thousand-dollar damages, in the future.
Yes.
absolutely.
Mhm.
And part of our success that we've had this year with launching Aloha Rental Management is we have built up a great reputation with our homeowners and making sure to be diligent about keeping a positive relationship with the tenants and making sure that their property is properly maintained and upkept. In the fourth quarter of this year, we onboarded several homes that are non-FEMA, and we've had a lot of great positive experience with that and helping our community members that are not fire survivors find housing because it's tough out there. The current rental market is anywhere between $1,000 to $2,000 per bedroom is a pretty solid rate. So at a
Yeah.
$1,500 per room average. So you're looking at for a 1 bedroom ohana or a 1 bedroom studio, maybe between 12 and 1,800. But a lot of 2 bedrooms are going for 25 to 35.
Yeah.
And that's just supply and demand in our market.
And some of the studios I've even seen going more in the 2000, and the one bedrooms hitting the $2,500 range, depending on the condition and location where they're at. So, it just sort of depends. I mean, I've even seen one bedrooms with ocean views going for like $3,500, that's out looking from Maui Meadows and over. So that can be really frustrating when people see those prices, but they always have to be, understanding that's always dependent on the condition, size, location. There might be garages, pets allowed, all these sorts of things kind of add up into the value of the home. And of course, the cost that the owner has to go through to maintain the increased value, the higher taxes that they have to pay, it all adds up.
Yeah, we saw this year post fire that every single condo association, HOA, our insurance rates are ungodly through the roof. I mean, 400% in many cases rise in insurance costs, and the HOA is directly passing that on to a lot of their homeowners in the form of assessment. So, even for our homes out there that are apartments and condos, those twos and threes, their prices have had to go up drastically and dramatically because of the ripple effect of the insurance and the HOAs, because our buildings were largely uninsured since the fire. And
Yeah.
Byron, you can attest to this, that, with properties on the market out there, that they need to be make sure to be properly insured for their lenders, correct?
Yeah, that's a big thing that's happening out there right now is the insurance. Is associations need to be adequately insured and properly insured, or the banks. And this is not just a Hawaii thing; it's all over. But it seems to have affected Hawaii a lot because maybe associations kept the lower policy with the bigger deductible, not thinking a big event would happen. And the Lahaina fire and many other events caused this door to open up throughout, the whole USA. But we're seeing it drastically where, like you said, associations went from $300 or $400 a month now to $800 a month because of that. I think there's going to be supposedly there's some work in the background happening to try to stabilize the insurance market. How
Yeah,
long?
they're talking about what issuing a bond or having private local insurance options available. But it's kind of funny, you bring this up, and there's associated values and sale prices for these properties. I like to use Kihei Shores as one example, and I don't know if you saw my post, but I got cut up. Like I saw a Kihei Shores, and it dropped over $100,000 in price for a three-bedroom, and I was like, this is a really good value. How is it still for sale? It's like a walkout unit. It's, in good shape. And it's one three-bedroom just sold in there for $100,000 more just a few months before this. And this one had been for sale from then, had dropped 100,000, was a similar condition. And the reason is it went from $800 a month in maintenance to $1,500 a month in maintenance. But the funny thing is that $700,000 equates to about $100,000 in terms of a mortgage payment. So the funny thing is the payment had not changed at all. That technically the amount of money that you would spend every month is exactly the same regardless of whether you bought a month ago or 3 months ago, or whether you bought today, because of the fact that the rates went up but the prices went down. I'm like, I'm surprised this one hasn't sold. There's like, it's the cheapest three-bedroom in all of Kihei, and people are like, you're just a greedy realtor and you think people need it. And it's like, no, like I work diligently to create affordable housing in perpetuity. Like, we've spent so much time and money to like make something like these programs happen. I'm asking a genuine question and looking to have a discussion. And it's kind of funny to see these big downvote parties and the opportunity to stand on a soapbox and yell down at the realtor who's causing all the problems. Of course, we're one of the few people that are trying to make efforts to create affordable housing. But nonetheless, when you look at the numbers and you look at the costs, condos have been dropping in price steadily, and it's almost a direct mirror in comparison to the amount of monthly fees increasing in those particular complexes. So it's always part and parcel to the cost of maintaining one of these properties. So do take that into consideration. And it's, of course, part of the reason always to reach out and talk to a lender, because when you do that, they can evaluate your income. They can come up with a plan for the future. They can work on things to change your credit rating so that your monthly payments will go down when it comes time to actually having a mortgage. There's so much to take into consideration. So definitely give Byron a call, talk to him on a program, not because you're planning on buying today, not because you're planning on buying tomorrow. It might be 2 or 3 years down the line. But the important thing is to make a plan and be ready for when that opportunity strikes.
Agree.
So, are there any other last points on that list you think we should be going over?
Yeah, there's a couple things. We pull it right back up right here. So I've covered most of them. There's some just hard data here that's I think really useful that some of the community might want to know. Over 475 million has been allocated since the fires into Maui alone. 62 million of that is just for individuals and households. So that's, let's see, we've got 40 million in housing assistance, 34 million in rental assistance, and another 22 million for other needs assistance. SBA has done a lot of stuff out there, over 400 million in SBA disaster loans for homeowners, renters, and businesses. So that's just, it's a lot of taxpayer dollars that's actually being used for our community. So that's just something that I like to point out, that, FEMA's money is actually our money. Those are
And it's
our
going to be interesting to see how things play out as insurance monies are going through the slow process of being allocated and spent by owners. But more importantly, we of course have this recent $4 billion settlement that's still in the process of going through final approvals and distribution. So do take that into consideration when you look at the time and when you're going to be building, or if you're going to be looking for a property, because if there's billions of dollars coming into a market, there's only so many properties that can absorb. Hopefully most of that money will go back and towards rebuilding what was previously there, but a lot of people will choose instead to either sell their lot, use their settlement or their insurance to buy something else. In fact, that's another radio show that I'm going to be doing next. I have clients of mine that lost their home during the Lahaina fire, and they ended up deciding to purchase a home in Kihei and remodeling that, as opposed to waiting for the process, because they didn't want to, be transitional and moving around. They were living out of, families' places, out of vans. They were couch surfing. And this is an older couple and friends of mine that have been, longtime Maui residents. So I look forward to having that radio show coming up.
Cool.
Just last thing from me, from Aloha Rental Management. If you are a homeowner or if you are a tenant, we do have a couple 3-bedroom and 4-bedroom properties available, some in Wailuku, some in Kihei. So once again, that's Aloha Rental Management at gmail.com for homeowners looking for management and for tenants looking for the next great home.
All right. And Byron.
Nice. Well, it's been great. It's been fun again. Look forward to doing it. And if anybody needs to reach me, it's that BEAP@asbhawaii.com. Thank you.
All right. And I'm Clint Hansen with Maui Real Estate Radio. You can go and see me at mauirealestateradio.com, and you can listen to this and all other shows on our podcasts wherever you listen. And more importantly, if you're looking for a place to go ahead and buy, well, you can always go to mauirealestate.net. It's been Maui's resource for real estate since 1997. We have 40,000 unique visitors that go to that website every single month. You're able to check out tax records. If you're looking at condos, you can, of course, see historical graphs and pricing. And it's just a fabulous resource to get county records as well. And of course, everybody loves seeing our ocean beach can on Charlie Young. If you're wondering what the South Swell is up to, which it's going off right now, definitely go to mauirealestate.net. All right.